Hello again and welcome back. We're sadly approaching the end of summer, but the good news is there's going to be a new season of Code for Thought. But before I start with Season 8, I want to tell you what's in store for you between September 2024 and the end of the year. And it's going to be a very busy season indeed. To start with, we're going polyglot. What I mean by that is that in addition to episodes in English and German, there'll be a French language version as well. If you've listened to this podcast, you'd have noticed that I interviewed a few people from France already, but always in English. Well, one of the people I talked to was Ghislain Vaillant, who I met in Paris early last year in 2023, when he was still working at the Paris Brain Institute at one of the large hospitals. It turns out that Ghislain is very interested in podcasting, and so we decided to put our efforts together and create a French edition. I met with Ghislain for a quick chat in August, in English I might add, where he will tell you a little bit more about himself and what listeners can expect from the first version of this very new French edition. So here's Ghislain.
Hello everyone, my name is Ghislain Vaillant. I am a PhD graduate from King's College London, and I went straight to becoming an RSE right after my PhD because I was more interested in the technical and the crafting aspect of research tooling rather than the traditional publishing-focused research work. So right after my PhD, I went to a short research associate post that was basically a disguised RSE opportunity there. I guess that's the only way to get funding at the time. Then I went to Imperial for a little bit more than 2 years on a similar setup where I was also an RSE for the whole group, and I was funded by bits of funding here and there. And right about at that time, the RSE movement started to take some traction. I got involved with the RSE group at Imperial, led by Jeremy Cohen at the time. And the more I got to experience my craft and get to know more and more groups within the university with the same problematics and the same challenges with regards to code, documentation, data management, and so forth, I got the confirmation that this is what I wanted to do for now on. That being said, Brexit happened, which as a result led me to come back to France. And then I found a similar position at ICM, and now I'm a full-time RSE engineer at INRIA, Paris.
And a future podcaster. Well, not a future podcaster, and you're going to be a podcaster because you're going to be on the show and you're going to host the French version of Code for Thought, which I'm really very grateful for, Ghislain.
Well, I am grateful for the opportunity as well. When you told me about the idea, initially I thought that you could do it yourself because your French is actually very good.
You're very kind.
I think you're very modest about it. But that being said, I definitely lack the expertise with regards to recording, editing, and what it takes to publish a podcast. So I am very grateful that we teamed up to create that French version, which is going to follow a similar layout as your traditional English interviews, with a twist at the end every time.
Yes, I like that actually, yeah.
Yes, our listeners will discover what that twist is.
Indeed. And we're going to start with Pascal Monas from the Laboratoire Gaspard Monge in east of Paris, I think it is.
Indeed. Then we'll move on with Alice Brenon from ENS Lyon. We'll have the group at GenC on quantum computing. And we'll also have the people behind the GIGS packaging system for scientific reproducibility. So that's as much as we can tease right now. I think we have quite an exciting list for this first season.
Well, I couldn't agree with them more. It's certainly going to be an exciting range of people and subjects you'll be hearing from. So, if you are a French speaker or you want to learn the language like I do, I hope you'll tune in. So what about the English and the German editions then? Let's start with the English episodes first. The season kicks off with a report on an interesting project called Beyond Open Research that's been running at Imperial College in London. And in fact, you'll be hearing more about the work at Imperial during this season, in particular their Research Software Champion Scheme. We're also diving into the world of high-performance computing with a bunch of topics and episodes like, for instance, the Large Unified Modern Infrastructure Project, or LUMI for short, which Kurt Lust from Belgium will take us through. Kenneth Hosty from Ghent University, also in Belgium, will talk to me about his HPC build tool called Easy. And to stay with the theme, I had the pleasure of meeting the authors of the CERN Virtual Machine and Virtual Machine File System, Laura Promberger and Jacob Blomer. Apart from HPC and championing research software, there'll be plenty of other stuff for you, like for instance meeting the engineers at the famous eScience Center in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, or a project for massive open online courses in France, and something about green computing and the RSE conference in Newcastle in September, and. On a more sobering note, 2024 is also the year where we sadly lost two computing pioneers, David L. Mills, the creator of the network time protocol, and Niklas Wirth, who is known for creating the Pascal language, amongst many of the other things he created. The influence of these two cannot be underestimated, and I really would like to remember them and their contributions with a couple of extra episodes during this season. Well, as for all of you German listeners, you're not going to be shortchanged either. The coming season will take us from open source software in steel manufacturing to the evolution of high-performance computing up to software quality and competencies. And did I tell you that it's going to be a busy season? Well, because it is. So let me explain how all of this works and how you find out which language the episodes are in after the break. There will be one German episode and one French episode per month. The German episodes will come out on the last Tuesday of a month and the French ones on each second Tuesday. All the other episodes will remain and be in English. But to make sure you've got the right language version for you, each episode title starts with a short two-letter language code in square brackets. EN for English, FR for French, and DE for German. Fitting different language editions in a single podcast show is quite frankly a bit of an experiment, so we see how this goes. But I hope this brief explanation makes it a bit clearer of how it works. So one of the questions that you might have is, why bother? And in fact, this was one of the questions that I was asked when I created the German language edition in early 2023. Because the argument ran that most, if not all, the listeners would speak and understand English. Which, in a way is true, and in fact, when you go to the German RSE conference, as I did a couple of times now, most presentations will indeed be in English. But I also remember what Gianni Saibini from Argentina once told me in an episode we did on crossing language barriers. It's difficult enough to learn computing or make your way into a new field of science, but it's even harder when you have to do this in another language. And I believe the same is true for listening to podcast episodes. It's simply easier and more accessible if you don't have to jump over the language barrier. But language barriers aside, research software and the people who develop and work on it is all such a vast and diverse field. And as I found out during my discussions with different researchers and engineers over the past few years, each country and geographic region is dealing with it in different ways. Of course, I'd like to offer content for more regions and more languages, alas there's just too many of them, but I do hope that 3 languages is a good start to make the content a bit more accessible, a bit more diverse, and a bit more far-reaching. I am of course keen to find out from you what you think about it, and what you make of the podcast as a whole. So if you have any comments, suggestions, concerns, or simply you want to say hi, do get in touch, which is easy to do either via email or via text message from the episode notes directly. I also can be reached on LinkedIn, Mastodon, Slack, and Element. And if I may just be a little bit cheeky at the end of this teaser, if you like what you hear and you want to support this show, go to my Patreon page in the show notes, where you can leave a little something. And with that, I hope you'll tune into the new season of Code for Thought. So thanks for your attention and keep on listening. Oh, time's up. See you next time. But before I forget, this podcast is covered by the Creative Commons license. See ya.